Hi, my name is Bridget Wynne. The topic that I chose to present is discussing assistive technology device sales. So to begin, what is assistive technology devices and services? Assistive technology devices are defined as any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of children with disabilities. This does not include any medical device that is surgically implanted. And the definition of assistive technology services is a bit different. It's defined as any service that directly assists individuals with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of assistive technology. So I briefly wanted to go over some of the legislation that was involved in this. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act is a law ensuring services to children with disabilities throughout the nation. IDEA basically governs how states and public agencies provide early intervention, special education, and related services to more than 6.5 million eligible infants. This is then broken into two parts, Part C and Part B. Part C is ages birth to 2. September 6, 2011, the Department of Education announced release of final regulations for early intervention. This helped improve services and outcomes for American infants and families with disabilities. This is a $436 million program that ensures states' accountability to improve results, providing needed services for infants, in addition to focusing on measuring and improving outcomes for about 350,000 children. Then there's Part B that focuses on ages 3 to 21. This was effective March 18th, 2013, and the department basically provides grants to states, outlying areas, and freely associated states to assist them in providing special education and related services to children with disabilities. Part B is also broken into 4 parts. I'll briefly go over those. The first one is ensuring all children with disabilities have free, accessible, and appropriate special education programs that emphasize what they need. The second part is the rights of children and families are protected. The third part is that they assist states, localities, educational services, and federal agencies in providing the education of all children with disabilities. And the fourth part is to assess and ensure the effectiveness of efforts to educate children with disabilities. So who uses assistive technology devices? Research shows that 57 million Americans have some sort of disability in 2010. 38.3 million Americans have a disability that makes everyday activities difficult, such as attending school, going to work, and their daily care. The people with disabilities make up a significant market of consumers. This represents more than a $200 billion in spending in technological innovations. So this graph is a representation of the overall number of assistive devices that were used in 1994, and they're broken down into categories. So most people using assistive technology was to compensate for mobility impairments, followed by hearing aids and back braces. Through this research, they found that assistive devices have increased dramatically over the past decade. It can be assumed that the increase in usage is related to an increase in age of the population. Those over 65 years of age accounted for the majority of mobility in hearing aids. But aside from that, it's believed that an increase in prevalence in rates of device technology is due to medical and technological advances, public policy initiatives, and population change. For example, more people are in need of assistive technology simply because it's been shown that these technologies have improved survival rates, in addition to making these designs of technologies more accessible and easy to use. They're lighter, they're safer, and in some cases they're cheaper. This is related to access and quality because the public initiatives through legislation acted over this past decade have influenced much more availability of assistive technology. For example, the legislation such as Technology-Related Assistance for Individuals with Disabilities Act of 1988 American with Disabilities Act, and the 1986 Rehabilitation Act amendments have certainly contributed to an increase in both knowledge and education and access and quality to assistive technology devices. So for this presentation, I wanted to focus specifically on autism spectrum disorder and kind of relate it back to assistive technology devices. This is something that I'm very familiar with, but continue to learn more and more about each and every day that I do work through it. So to start, I'll just do a brief definition of autism. Autism spectrum disorder is a neurodevelopmental syndrome defined by deficits in social interactions, communication, in addition to unusual, restrictive, repetitive behaviors. So children diagnosed with autism typically show challenges with social skills, repetitive behavior, speech. Some are nonverbal, however, they do have, in some cases, very unique strengths. This is usually first noted in infancy, and it is considered a heterogeneous condition, meaning that no two individuals diagnosed with ASD have the same profile, so it's very unique to each individual who has it. It was first classified in 1992, which is not that long ago, and since then, prevalence rates have also dramatically increased. And through research, it can be attributed to local educational agencies incorporating new categories of special education instead of just kind of across-the-board increase in special education. So this way they're able to meet the needs of children with autism versus children with Down syndrome. So I kind of wanted to relate this back to how autism affects quality of life. An article discussing assistive technology devices and the support it provides for children with ASD explain how the inability to communicate effectively has a significant impact on the quality of life, educational access, and the development of social skills and relationships. The frustration of not being able to communicate can lead to negative behavior and challenges as well. So there are, luckily, hundreds of thousands of assistive devices out there, specifically for autism, such as academic and learning aids, aids for daily living, assistive listening devices and environmental aids, computer access, environmental control, mobility aids, vocational recreation, seating and positioning. So most of these are to help with cognitive skills in addition to social, emotional, and kind of help all around depending on what that child needs. So ASD devices can also be kind of broken down into three categories of low-tech, mid-tech, and high-tech strategies. So the low-tech strategies are typically the lowest cost. They don't really involve technology. They kind of support visual strategies with no technology. Some examples of this are dry erase boards, clipboards, 3-ring binders, photo albums, laminated pictures, individualized schedules, calendars, and visual routine checklists. These can all make a difference in a child's life for very low cost and low tech. Next is mid-tech strategies. These involve some sort of battery-operated device, such as a voice output communication aid. There are also tape recorders, language masters, overhead projectors, timers, calculators, and simple voice outputs. And then last are the high-tech strategies, and these are typically the most complex and expensive. These can range from video cameras, computers, to adaptive hardware, complex voice output devices, and they do help develop language and social skills and can be studied through tone of voice and body language. Like I said earlier, ASD is a condition that is considered heterogeneous, so the symptoms vary person to person, so this requires a lot of extensive and meticulous evaluations on this individual, which are done in order to choose the right therapy for that individual. These treatments and interventions are closely monitored in order to constantly be evolving while that patient is also evolving. So when that patient is progressing, then they continue to change that therapy, and sometimes, unfortunately, patients will regress and then they need to switch things up again. When these steps are followed and done properly, the negative side effects of under or overusing a specific product is limited through close evaluation and data. So to begin, how can assistive technology help children? It typically begins with an evaluation. This is done by a school or an independent agency. It usually addresses the strengths and weaknesses of this individual, usually children. And then next is helping that child learn classroom material in a way that he or she understands. So this will require a customized learning environment in order to reduce barriers. And many times children with autism are more of a visual learner and thinker, so they can customize learning environment to help them. Related to that are many of them are, according to Temple Grandin, he is an author, speaker, and individual with ASD, and explains how pictures are their first language and words are their second language. So technology makes visual images much more accessible for these visual thinkers to connect and understand the world around them. Auditory sensitivity is another thing. Many have been reported to respond better to lower sounds and frequencies, and there are programs and softwares out there that can be downloaded to adjust the sounds according to their needs. There are even some devices out there that automatically sound an alarm when the decibel level gets too high in order to avoid any sort of trigger. Many have issues with sequencing, so there's technology out there that can reduce the number of steps required for the completion of a task to reduce frustration, and they also give visual representation so they can see how to get from point A to point B to point C. Fine motor is another challenge for many kids with ASD. They have a hard time with handwriting, and it can be very frustrating for them. So there's technology that can reduce the frustration by using a keyboard, touch screen, or even speech to text. And last is some are unable to communicate. So augmentation technology and voice output devices are used to express themselves as well. So overall, the device's effect on quality of life for ASD are usually positive when the proper steps are taken to evaluate a child and then come up with a treatment plan. There's a higher chance that this individual will have a higher quality of life than they did before because they'll be able to better understand their environment, improve communication and social interaction skills. They're able to have better attention skills in addition to expanding motivators, improving organization skills, and keep up with classroom curriculum, which will also increase their independence. So this is a graph that I did a study on, that I researched on. It basically is a study done by the Developmental Medicine and Child Neurology in 2008. It focused on the effect of assistive devices on children with functional impairments. So this table is kind of broken down into different categories that focused on the outcomes, classified under activity, participation, and personal factors. In the end, there was an overwhelmingly positive outcome with few undesirable outcomes that were recorded. This study focused on school activities for the activity portion of it, such as writing, using computers, and communication aids, and how it affected overall activity level in school and at home. So in conclusion, there are millions of apps available for almost anything and everything out there. Specifically for autism is what I wanted to focus on today. And these technology and apps must be carefully personalized in order to meet the needs of the individual, in order to not have overuse or underuse. It also will effectively meet the needs that they need in order to see improvements. So many technological advances are coming out each and every day to make the possibilities involving cost, quality, and access much more approachable. And although assistive technology may not eliminate a disability, it allows that person to deal with everyday functions and independence, thus enabling them to participate more fully in the environment around them. Thank you.